WRKS.
All systems go.
Live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
This is Out Warning.
Live in the studio. It's the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming live worldwide on the Out of Bounds radio app. And on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
All set? Let's go.
The Zone.
All right, good morning. Welcome in. What's happening? All you crazy people on Twitter. We are the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Thanks for listening to The Zone on the dial. The Mississippi Ag John Deere Tractor text line is 601-885-3776. Twitter handle at Bo Bounds. Brought to you by BreezyOaksRanch.com. They will ship premium beef and pork to your door right out of Canton and Vaden, Mississippi. If you're listening right now, go ahead and jump on BreezyOaksRanch.com. And then your Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line is 601-707-3750. Man, we have some topics today, but we've got like 14 interviews on the show. I've got Blake Mania with me. We're hoping that Blake will bring in a maxed effort Thursday. He's 3 shows in this week. We want to see the strain today because we have yet to have a max effort, show from Blake Mania this week.
What?
And we're running out of time, man. The clock is ticking. So I'd love to hear from our listeners. What can Blake do to show strain and max effort on the show today? The Mississippi Ag text line, your thoughts on Blake, 601-885-3776. Dak Prescott left practice yesterday. His shoulder was a little sore, a little tight. We've got some Dak audio. Blakey Blakester, do we want to go ahead and just drop that audio? But it'd be like a big old breakfast sandwich. It's 7:03 in the morning.
Yeah, it's coming in punching hard and fast, man.
All right, well, this is gonna really set the tone if you're gonna give us a maxed out effort today. Here's Dak.
Just a little shoulder pain, a little shoulder soreness, I should say, and tightness. I felt it a little bit yesterday. I came out today, was going to work through it, and just felt I should be smart. I've got a long time to go, get a day of rest or so, and just get back at it. I didn't obviously want to push through something that could potentially make it worse, so everything's fine.
Okay, that's a word. I'm concerned. And there's a lot on the line here because I actually want to watch NFL football this year. And
enjoy it.
Yeah. And I kind of broke up with the NFL last year to a certain extent after Dak was injured. And that sounds to me like he needs to sit out like a week.
Yes, I think so. Agreed.
The
official reports is it's a latissimus dorsi strain, which is essentially a muscle.
Did you say latissimus?
I did, yeah.
Are you talking about a Greek god or Dak Prescott's shoulder?
No, we're not talking about my physique.
Are you talking about Greek mythology?
Yeah, no. It's a muscle
that was taught to us in what grade when we were growing up?
Oh,
6th grade?
Yeah, something like that, right?
Usually the teacher was pretty boring.
Yeah.
Which in then turn made the content pretty boring. Go ahead.
That's true. He has a strain in the lat, so to speak, which is going to run through your back in your shoulder area. And so essentially it can create stress or pain in the arm, shoulder, and lower back.
Okay.
So he is, according to the official reports, he is set to be day-to-day, but I'm with you. I think he doesn't need to play against Pittsburgh, just in the preseason game. The first one doesn't matter.
No.
Don't care.
Take him out for at least a week.
And he needs to be out at least a week. I'm 100% with
And I
you.
don't think they'll do that because it's the NFL.
Oh, and it's the Cowboys.
And that's not football-wise. Again, Jerry's brilliant on the business side. Football-wise, I don't think anybody has any idea what they're doing.
This won't be a topic on Hard Knocks, will it? This won't
for our
be the
listeners,
lead, will it?
Hard Knocks is the football show on HBO. Is it still HBO, Blake?
Oh, yeah.
And
they somehow make money on it. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, or whatever, just fills content. But I'm sorry, fills space with pretty good content, I guess, depending on what year it is. But Hard Knocks, the team this year is the Dallas Cowboys. So we'll see how that. When do they start playing it? Like a week from now? It's a pretty quick turnaround, right?
Yeah, it should be. The first episode usually airs around when the Hall of Fame, like when their first preseason game goes off. So
Not bad for HBO, right?
No,
I mean they're located in L.A. and the Cowboys are doing their camp in Oxnard, which is what, one of 84 suburbs of the LA metro area.
84, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only right down the road.
Okay. Well, there you go. So HBO,
August 10th, I believe, is the first day of the first episode.
There's a book called Mavericks at Work that has an amazing chapter in there about the who, what, where, and why of HBO.
Yeah,
it's pretty
Can I give you the crew that they're sending?
I mean, they have
cover?
produced some amazing content the last 40 years.
Both
super talented people have been a part of that
both
company.
Reality content and totally fictional created content. Right. Like they've done both, because Hard Knocks is obviously reality to some extent.
Yes.
You're playing off something that is not, you're not scripting the whole thing, so to speak.
Absolutely.
They're sending a 30-man crew, and they'll capture over 1,800 hours of footage.
All right.
To create what essentially boils down to like 5 hours of television.
This will be the biggest Hard Knocks they've ever done.
Probably.
Because it's the Dallas Cowboys.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so.
It is. It will be, I think. The show is powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club, dancingrabbitgolf.com, to schedule a tee time or get into the whole stay and play guys trip deal, or guys and girls, whatever you want to do. Pearl River Resort, Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. Okay, so we're loaded up today. We don't usually do this, but this is just how it lined up. We'll have Herbert Davis on, the head football coach at MRA, in the next segment. It's rare we do an interview in that segment, but they start practice in 15 minutes or whatever it is, 7:30. Sorry, 20 minutes. And so Herbert Davis will stop by. MRA will play a football game on August 28th at 2:00 on ESPN2.
He's the big wolf in the dog.
Right. So they're back-to-back state champs, and they just landed a game with ESPN. So they'll be on ESPN2 against Oakland High School, which is the number one football program right now in the state of Tennessee, and it will be at MRA August 28th, 2:00, Patriot Field, and that's a big deal. It's a big deal for the school. It's a big deal for the Madison. It's a big deal for Mississippi and the metro area. So congratulations to MRA, as they will host ESPN, and they will be on ESPN2.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I remember how big a deal we thought it was when like Prep played Pearl and we were on like WCBI or whatever.
No, C-Spy or Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, like WAPT was there and like ESPN Radio was there, and we were like, oh my gosh, like, that's amazing.
Right,
right. Like these kids are going to be like, their parents can DVR this and watch their kids play on
You just
TV.
said DVR.
Well, whatever. TiVo, I don't know, whatever you do. That's pretty cool, man. I mean,
is.
To be on ESPN2, that's a big deal.
I'm excited for them. I really, really am.
If you'd have told me pick MRA, JA, or Prep to be on ESPN2 for their football team 10 years ago, MRA would have been the third option. What Herbert's been able to build, and now is the two-time. I mean, he's the two-time. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That's he's built a monster over there.
He really has. And
St. Augustine.
On St. Augustine. Yeah, Ridgewood Road, in St. Augustine. You're exactly right. So that's August 28th, Blake. That's a Saturday game.
It's a 2:00. I think 1:30, 2:00.
2:00.
Yeah, something like that. So
2:00
that'll be cool.
Game.
It won't be hot.
Good Lord. But you got to do what you got to do this time of year if you're going to play high school football.
When you're on TV, baby, you just got. I mean, you're at the will of the monster.
No question. It's pretty cool. The Out of Bounds Show is powered by Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center. Visit MississippiSportsMedicine.com for any orthopedic hiccup. Welcome in. Good morning. Herbert Davis coming up next. John Cohen, 7:35. Bill Blackwell, 8 a.m. Executive Director of the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame and Museum. Steve Palazzolo at 8:30. We're loaded the next hour and a half.
Swoochy Boochie, good morning to you.
Southern Community.
WRKS Pickens Jackson.
Are you ready?
Now live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus Studio.
You are listening to
Mississippi's #1 sports talk show, The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming worldwide live on the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9. The Zone.
The Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by the Great Steaks at Kessler Prime and the Renaissance. Visit KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. You're listening to 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We just received a great text on Texas and Oklahoma. We're going to ask our next guest about them, too. But Brian weighs in on the Mississippi Ag text line. The Texas Longhorns are like that girl you meet at the dock at 1 a.m. You think she's a 10, but just a few hours later, you realize she is a hard 6 or soft 7 at best.
It always comes back to the dock. I've told you that.
It's unbelievable.
Always comes back to the dock.
Unbelievable. Our guests join us on the Modelo guest line. We welcome in Steve Robertson, the Boneyard Podcast, genespage.com. And Steve joins us on the Out of Bounds Show. Steve, your thoughts on Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC party?
Well, I think that girl from Texas also, you take her to the Waffle House on the way home, and you go in there and sit down, and everybody knows her. You know, that's one thing you got to be careful with too. It's not about, it's kind of like going to a strip club. You go in there, everything looks great, but you got to be awfully careful what you bring home with you. That's some of the concern, I think, with Texas, because they've been so toxic over the years. They ruined the Southwest Conference. They ruined the Big 12. And they're not going to be able to come to the SEC and run the show. And that's what's going to be interesting from a cultural standpoint. Nothing's going to happen in this league without Alabama, Florida, and Georgia signing off on it. And so Texas is not going to be able to come bully the other schools in the league. And will they come in here and be a good team player, or will they come in here and have a sense of entitlement? That's the things that concern me.
No, I think that's a great point, Steve. And if I had to guess, Sankey has been clear that we run the show and not one school does. And as you said, Bama, Florida, and Georgia carry a big stick at the table. But the SEC has never been run like that. And I think Texas will actually abide by, I think the SEC way and probably how Sankey has laid it out to them. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you certainly hope so. And that's the thing. I don't think anybody has any apprehension really about Oklahoma coming in. They just don't have, that type of stigma about them, But here's the deal. When you look at this from a financial standpoint, I've seen some of the numbers, and they're staggering. First it was estimated that each school would rake in close to $20 million more. Now some of the estimates suggest it could be as many as $40 million more. And when you're a school like Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and others, it's not just from a football standpoint. Now you can use that money to help, improve your facilities in your Olympic sports and in baseball and things of that nature. And listen, it's not going to get State and Ole Miss closer to LSU, Alabama, but it is going to allow State and Ole Miss to get some separation from teams like NC State, Louisville, teams that they recruit against regularly. I mean, you have a bit of an advantage facility-wise now, but can you imagine what it'll be in 10 years?
I think you're on to something there. Steve Robertson on the Modelo guest line. Steve, I've got it as slightly less difficult because they will not have to play Bama every year, Mississippi State and Ole Miss going forward. So I'm giving you three options. Do you think it's slightly more difficult to win in football, slightly less difficult, or negligible as once they get in the league in football for the Dogs and the Reps?
Well, I think it's going to be slightly easier. And the reason that I say that is kind of goes along with what you're saying now. I mean, it's like the casual fan thinks, well, State and Ole Miss are going to have to play Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Texas, and Oklahoma every year. That's just not true. That's just not how that's going to work. And if this four-pod system is rolled out, if it's being advertised, and you're going to be able to avoid some of the blue bloods each and every year. Now, there'll be a year when you have a loaded schedule. But I think by and large, the commitment financially is going to allow you to upgrade your facilities. And I think probably the one thing nobody's talking about, you're not going to lose coaches. You're not going to be outbid for coaches. And that's not just in football, but in other sports too. And how many times do you see a coach come in and do a good job, and next thing you know, they leave for a bigger program because it's a bigger payday? And so now you're going to have more salary dollars available to you to retain coaches, not just head coaches, but assistant coaches as well.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds show. He joins us on the Modelo Guest Line, the Boneyard Podcast. You can find it on all the platforms, Apple, Spotify, and Podbean, and so on. Steve, what about, let's switch gears here. Now that we've had a few weeks to exhale and breathe, kind of frame up what you're seeing the baseball national title is doing right now for the school, for maybe the baseball program, and what it could maybe continue to do for both going forward.
Well, the first thing that I'll say is that I've been told that Mississippi State and Chris Lemonis are very, very, very close to announcing a new contract extension for Lemonis. That's something that was actually maybe in negotiations prior to the trip to the College World Series, and surely the price of poker has gone up since then. But I think you're going to see an announcement on that very, very, very soon, possibly as early as today. But also, when you look at the transfer market, Mississippi State is really in a position where it is a buyer's market. That's how you get guys like R.J. Yeager from Mercer. That's how you get Jess Davis from UAB. It's because now that you've done it, there are a lot of these, guys that are difference makers in the transfer portal that say, hey, well, listen, if I've got a chance to legitimately go win a national championship there and certainly go to Omaha, that's where I want to go. And so you're seeing it on the recruiting end, I think, more so than anywhere else. Not that State hadn't recruited well in years past. They certainly have. But I think you're about to see recruiting hit a different level for State because of the fact Lemonis can afford to be a little pickier.
How many more transfers out of the transfer portal? 2, 3? What are you hearing?
That's a good question. I think, you've got a huge class coming in. I think you're looking at 20 newcomers. Maybe if they can find, a quality left-handed arm, obviously with Houston Harding moving on, that kind of it creates a bit of a gap there. You'd like to be able to have a guy that can come in and chew up some left-handed bats. And so if they can find a quality guy, not just a guy, but I think if they can find a guy that's a difference maker, you got to go make that move if you can get a left-handed arm somewhere.
I want to go back to R.J. Yeager. He was an absolute stud in the regionals. This guy could be a big-time playmaker out of Mercer to Mississippi State. How does that work with Lane Forsythe and R.J. Yeager transferring in from Mercer? Who do you think grabs second base? Who grabs shortstop?
Well, I think Forsythe is well ahead of him defensively. He doesn't have the same offensive tools, but I think Yeager probably, if I had to call it today, is probably your second baseman. He's played every inning of his college career at short, so you kind of got to get that turn down. It's a little different over there at second, but he doesn't. I don't think he's quite as consistent defensively as Forsythe, and I think Forsythe's best days are ahead of him. But when you add Yeager to a lineup, that's another double-digit home run guy. You're already expecting Cam James and Hancock and Kellum Clark and Logan Tanner, possibly Brad Compass. You're looking at potentially 5 double-digit home run guys again. You add a 6th guy in there, it really adds some length to the lineup. But I think they'll come in and compete, and the best guy will start at short. But, I would say Cam James, all his guys are in that mix, and the best guy will play. But nobody's guaranteed anything. But I think with what happened with Scotty DeBrule last year, I think it makes you more of a destination type consideration for guys because I think he's the guy that can come in and play second base and make you a better team immediately.
Steve, I've got about 30 seconds. Brad Compass, I saw him in a sling or whatever with his arm that got hurt. There were rumors he wasn't going to play football. So he is going to play football this year?
The understanding I have is he'll play football one more year, and there's probably a good chance he gets drafted in baseball next year. So then we won't have this discussion next summer. But, I expect him to be part of the football program this fall.
Wow. Going to be a lot of what might have been with him not going through fall ball in baseball. But I don't blame him. You got to do what you got to do. Steve, thanks. Steve Robertson, genespage.com, the Boneyard Podcast. Joining us on the Modelo guest line, it is a Taco Tuesday. Brought to you by Modelo. Back in a second. Because
Is this thing working? Give me some sound over here. Yeah. The Out of Bounds Show is powered by the award-winning golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Golf Club in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome in to the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. You can watch the show on Facebook and YouTube. Search the Out of Bounds Show. Super, super excited to welcome in a special guest in studio. That's why we built a studio like this. And Major League Baseball All-Star from Ware, Mississippi. With the Houston Astros, Roy Oswalt joins us on the Modelo guest line. And Roy, good morning. Welcome in. How you doing, buddy?
Morning, great.
Glad to have you in. And everything going well this summer?
Man, it's been awesome. Everything's been great. Finally back to normal, I guess you'd say. And everything's going well.
So you will be inducted into the Houston Astros Hall of Fame next weekend, and that's got to be exciting.
Yes, I'm getting to come up with a team for 5 years in the minor leagues, 4.5 years in the minor leagues, and then 10 more in the big leagues. It's kind of like a family. Sure. A lot of the guys I got to play with coming through the minor leagues. Got to play with in the big leagues too, and just a special group. Lance Berkman, we came up together. He's also going into the Astros Hall of Fame, and getting to be inducted with him is pretty special.
That's awesome. So you spent 4.5 years in the minors.
4.5 years
before getting called up, and so you go to Ware High School, and you play multiple sports. I saw y'all won a football state championship your senior year, but you're somewhat overlooked, and you end up at Holmes, and you continue to get better and have an awesome junior college career, and then you get drafted, and it gets pretty close between the Houston Astros and Mississippi State Bulldogs. How close? Like, walk us through, I don't know what it was, whether it was 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month or so. How did that all play out?
Well, once I left high school at Ware, coming from a 1A school, you don't have a lot of looks.
Right.
Everyone tend to go to the bigger schools, think that they're facing more competition on a regular basis. And if you kind of get overlooked, I think that was one of the main reasons I didn't really get looked at from a lot of the 4-year colleges coming out of high school. So I was throwing 90-91 coming out of high school.
Which was strong. I mean, back then, I know everybody's throwing faster today.
Yeah.
But 90-91 in high school in 1995 and 1996 was bringing it.
Yeah, and especially, I think we had 16 games my senior year, and I pitched every one of them. So,
are you serious?
It wasn't a pitch count back then. That's what I told guys. It was real funny. Once I got in the minor leagues, I had to adjust to a pitch count. They said, after 110 pitches, you're coming out of the game. I'm like, no, I'm not coming out of the game. And we don't count pitches where I come from. Right. So it was kind of an adjustment period there. But once I left Ware, I went to Holmes Community College. The only scholarship I had actually offered to me coming out of high school.
That's incredible.
And went there, and my first year increased in velocity a little. I went 92, 94. After the first year, I grew a little bit. I was actually young. I was 17 when I graduated, so I was a little bit young coming out of high school. Kind of matured a little more when I got into college, and by my second year, I was throwing 97, 96, 97, and guys started coming around a little more after that, picking up velocity. I think one of the biggest things, guys get recruited on size. Wasn't real big coming out of high school, probably 6 foot, 170 pounds. They was looking for those 6'5", 6'6" guys.
Sure.
Wanted to create angle from the mound, and the way I looked at it is, if you get guys out, it don't really matter, how tall you are.
Yeah, I mean, Roy Oswalt, Jeff Brantley, they got guys out, and that's what counts, right?
Yeah, and I actually was a draft and follow guy. I got drafted in the 23rd round my first year in junior college, and they've actually done away with it right now. But you could sign a draft and follow. So they offered me $50,000 my first year to go in the 23rd round. I decided to go back to school. That signed a draft and follow at any time between you get drafted the first year and before the next year's draft, you can sign that. So it's kind of like an insurance policy.
Okay.
So if I'd have went to school and say had an elbow problem or shoulder problem, I could have took the $50,000, went with Houston Astros. But I didn't sign. I didn't sign for the $50,000. I ended up going into the next year's draft and signed back with Houston, and it was kind of between the first and second round pick.
Okay. So Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show going into the Houston Astros Hall of Fame this summer, which is really cool, from Ware, Mississippi. And he's joining us on the Out of Bounds show and the Modelo guest line. I don't know if this is right. Did the scout kind of hide you a little bit? I mean, there's a story there. Back then, you could. Today, it's hard to hide somebody, right?
Yeah.
And we're the same age. Not like back then was that long ago, but you know what I mean, right? I mean,
I know what you mean.
We didn't have Twitter and YouTube and all this
the good
stuff.
old days. That's
right,
good old days.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have a cell phone in the 90s. So.
Yeah, and me either. Yeah, you could fly under the radar for sure. Like I said, when I started going to play, other schools and stuff, there would be other guys that maybe some guys are looking at that was going to a bigger college or whatever, and I started getting a little more exposure after my first year. Signing that draft and follow kind of locked Houston in, I guess you'd say,
Gotcha.
where other scouts couldn't really talk to me because I was under their rights until I signed.
Brilliant by the Astros.
So I kind of got locked down the first year, but
so how close? All right, you're coming off your sophomore year at Holmes. You're making this jump. You're getting better and better. Astros are bird dogging you, but there's Mississippi State, which is a heck of a baseball program over here, and Ron Polk's still there, and Pat McMahon's back from Old Dominion, phenomenal pitching coach. So, kind of give me how close was it?
Real close. I got recruited by all the SEC schools. I actually went to Alabama, LSU, all of them on recruiting visits.
Okay.
But I lived 40 minutes from Starkville growing up, a Bulldog fan. And I always wanted to play. I always wanted to play at Duty Noble for sure. And that was my dream actually coming out of high school. I really, thought I had the good enough stuff to play there and didn't get looked at them, and kind of broke my heart a little bit.
That hurts me.
It broke my heart a little bit, but
because we'd have gotten him for 3 years.
I don't want to usurp this interview, but how in the world, as an avid supporter of Mississippi State baseball, how in the world does Polk and company, we've talked about the Seth Smiths and the Stephen Heads and guys like that.
Right.
How do you miss a guy throwing 90 plus in the 90s? That's 30 minutes from your.
I think what Roy said earlier, Ware was 1A. And any assistant coaches tend to gravitate to 4 or 5.
Even John Hevesy would have driven to Roy's high school games. Okay, that's embarrassing.
Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone. Roy Oswalt joining us, going into the Astros Hall of Fame this summer, and so it was close. It comes down to,
I actually called.
It worked out for you, no doubt.
I actually called Pat McMahon. He was the pitching coach there, and. They were the scouts was in my house, and we had kind of agreed on a number that if they got to it, that we would sign. Well, they're calling back and forth to Houston, trying to make the number work. And I remember them coming back into the room and say, "Hey, we can make it work." Wow. And so I called Pat actually and told him, I can't turn this down. There's no way I can turn this down, and go 1 year. To Mississippi State and try it again, just on, money wise and it's
a good opportunity.
It's a great opportunity to get, go and play in front of a lot of people and learn as you go. So it was really close. Like I said, I really wanted to play there. Sometimes you miss it, but it worked out. It worked out.
Yeah. Houston Astros pitcher Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show. Was there a time? So at this point, you're highly coveted. You get into the Astros minor league baseball organization. You stayed 4.5 years. You obviously had a long career in MLB, but was there a time where you weren't sure if you'd make it, or did you feel like the whole time there's no doubt I'll make the show?
There was a time, the thing with the Astros at the time they signed me, they was, pitcher rich. They had Jose Lima had won 22 games. Mike Hampton won 21 games. Shane Reynolds won 19 games. They was throwing out arms, left and right and winning games. And it was a slow process. They were like, oh, I can't believe you spent 4.5 years in the minor leagues. But like I said, I was 17 when I graduated. So actually, when I signed with them, I was only 19 years old.
Okay.
So I went to first year. They wanted to start me out in rookie ball and get my feet wet because I come from a small school and stuff like that. Well, I only pitched 5 games and didn't give up a run, so they moved me up. And they moved me up to single A, and that year I ended up finishing a year up there just as good as all the other pitchers there, but I was young, compared to them. Most of those was, 4-year guys, college guys that was 22, 23 years old, and I'm 19. So I went back to that low A ball the next year and ended up leading the league and everything. And so they moved me up to the Midwest League. And Johan Santana and I was on the same pitching staff. So we ended up winning, I think we won 14, 13 games apiece up there and, have a really good ERA. So they didn't protect Johan that year. And they put him on a AAA roster thinking that he was going to slip through. And the Twins picked him up and put him in the big leagues. So he went from the Midwest League to the big leagues.
Unbelievable.
So if it would have all came together and they would have protected him, it would have been Johan Santana, me, Freddie Garcia, in the big leagues all at one time, which would have been, pretty stout.
Yeah.
I went next year. I started out in A ball, and it's a funny thing because I stayed so many years in A ball. I ended up spending about 3 years in A ball. And then I pitched 3 months in AA and 1 month in AAA in the big leagues.
So I'm trying to do the timeline here.
I was drafted in
Generals.
No, they just went to Texas to the Round Rock.
Got it. Okay.
Isn't
that when Nolan Ryan bought it or something? Right. Okay.
Actually,
couldn't remember.
I was pitching in high A ball, and one of the guys in AA got hurt that year, and it was actually landed on the day I started. So they moved me up for a spot start in AA. And they gave me a ticket to get there and a ticket to get back. They said, only carry enough clothes to get you back home. So I only carried a little suitcase with, set of clothes in it. Well, I ended up pitching 9 innings that night, struck out 15 guys, and they kept me. So it kind of all fell into place.
It did.
And that's where I ran into Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan was one of the guys I watched growing up. I loved the way he attacked guys.
Me too.
If you step close to plate, knock you down. That's the type of pitcher I was. And he was actually at the game that I pitched, first game he came to. And it just kind of lined up. It just seemed like the stars lined up, right. He watched the game. They was going to send me back anyway. That I'm through 9 innings. And he called the GM and said, hey, this guy's staying. You can't send this guy back.
and when Nolan Ryan makes the call, then that's it, right?
So I got to stay. So he stuck up for me, and I got to stay.
Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show, going in the Astros Hall of Fame this summer from Ware, Mississippi. Now lives in Starkville. He and a crew have just opened an amazing restaurant called Taste in Starkville, Mississippi. It's where the veranda was. And lunch, dinner, brunch. And they are rolling, and they're super excited about it. You'll have to check it out. Taste in Starkville, where the veranda was, and then they will be opening 44 Prime in mid-August, right in time for football season. And I think most of you know where the 44 comes from. That would be the guy to my left if you're watching the show, to your right. Blake? No, I got one more. Hang on. Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show and the Modelo guest line. Nolan Ryan was one of my favorite guys. I collected all his baseball cards, all that stuff when I was 9, 10, 11 years old. What has it been like to get to know him and cultivate a relationship with Nolan Ryan?
Just what you'd imagine. You see him the way he was on the field, all business. He's the same way off the field. He's a straightforward guy. His word is what it is. That goes a long ways these days in baseball. If he tells you something, that's what's going to happen. Just been a stand-up guy. Got to meet his whole family. Reed, great guy. He was the president of Astros for a couple of years, and then his other son and daughter, just great family all the way around. Nolan, one of the things that I picked up a lot from him, just watching him on TV, is the way he goes about business. It wasn't none of this showboating type pitching. It was, hey, here it is, hit it if you can. I don't think you can, so I'm gonna keep throwing it. And that's the way I felt when I got on the mound. Sure. I felt like I was better than they was at the plate. I'm gonna give you my best stuff, and if you can hit it, hats off. But you're gonna have to do it 4 times in a row. I'm gonna keep coming after you. And one of the best compliments I ever got, Tony Gwynn told Brad Osmus, at the plate one day, he said, every time I step in the box, I feel like I'm 0-2, because I went straight after guys, and that's, a big compliment from a guy that one of the best hitters in the game.
Yeah, Tony Gwynn was one of my favorite players growing up. That's another one. I had all his Donruss, Fleer, Topps, you name it. I had all his baseball cards because, you'd go home. If you lived in the South, you'd go home and you would turn on the Cubs or the Braves, and they played the Padres a lot, right? Because the Padres broke my heart in '84 when they beat the Cubs in playoffs. But Tony Gwynn, amazing. That's a great story. Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show, owner of Taste Restaurant in Starkville, 44 Prime, coming in August. And he and Chef Craig and the team are very, very excited about what they're doing in the culinary world in Starkville, Mississippi. Follow Taste on Facebook. Facebook, and we've been 3 times now, and it is fantastic. But I haven't hit brunch yet. Plan on doing that. Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show. Where were you when you were either told or took the call that you were coming up to the big league team for the Astros?
I was playing with New Orleans Zephyrs.
Yeah.
And I'd pitched about 4 or 5 games, started about 4 or 5 games. And I had pitched the game the night before and thrown, I think, 7 innings, give up 3 runs. It was an okay start. Wasn't great. Wasn't by my standards. But I was sitting in the dugout, and the next day after you pitch, you chart. So I was charting the next day's pitchers. And our manager was Tony Pena, and he always had this phone with him that if that phone rang, we knew somebody was coming up or something was going on. So during the game, the phone rings. So everybody's like looking down, who could get the call up, da-da-da. I really had no idea. I was thinking, I didn't throw real well. They probably ain't going to call me up. But I've been pitching pretty well, except for that start. And phone rings, and he looks down the thing, comes walking down there, and he not really saying much. And then he said, meet me in the tunnel. I'm thinking, man, I just got released.
Yeah.
Everything go through your mind.
Right.
So I walked down in the tunnel, and he said, you need to pack your bags. You got to be in Montreal in the morning. And it was just almost like, the feeling that you get, it's almost like you're floating almost.
Sure.
It's just, you dreamed about this all your life. And the thing that was going through my mind was the craziest thing, but the next morning I get on the flight to go to Montreal, and all I can remember is just saying, please don't let this plane crash before I get there. Just let me have one day.
Right.
One day in the big league.
In the show.
Yeah.
Right.
At least you get your name down that you've been in the show. And I flew to Montreal, and they had told me when I got there, you're going to be in the bullpen at the very beginning. No, you've been a starter, but we're just going to get your feet wet till you get the hang of it, and we'll go from there. So, man, great. Sounds great to me. Let's go. Let's roll. So the next night, we're winning by a lot. We're beating the Expos by 12 or 13 runs, and they called me in the 8th. And I've always been a starter, so I had time to get ready. And they called me in the 8th and said, hey, going in the 8th. And I'm thinking, man, I ain't even stretched or anything, So I jump up and I start stretching. Well, Mike Jackson is in the bullpen with us. He pitched for the Indians for a long time. And he said, I'll jump up and get warm with you. If you're not ready, don't run out there and hurt yourself. I'll throw one out, and then you can come in. All right, so I throw like 5 or 6 throws, and I'm about to get on the hill. Well, he throws 7 times off the hill, and the inning's over. And I'm like, I haven't even thrown a pitch off the mound yet, And he goes, I'll get the first out, and you come in after me. He goes out there and throws 4 pitches and gets through the 8th inning. So I'm sitting there thinking, you've got to be kidding me, So anyway, I'm like, well, I'll be ready for the 9th, So I go out there in the 9th, and I pitch the 9th against the Expos. And actually, the first guy I got to face, or maybe the second guy I got to face, was Vladimir. And
wow,
I got the first strikeout with him, so it's pretty special.
That's cool. So by the second day you're in the show, you pitch at Montreal for the Astros.
We leave Montreal. That's the last day in Montreal. and the next day we're in Chicago facing the Cubs
You get to be in Wrigley.
with 38,000 people there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, probably the
Was
you
it-
know, it. I've never been there. I never got to go see the Cubs play before. So the first time I actually at Wrigley, I'm on the field, which is pretty special. And they called me in the office after the Montreal, said, "That's what we want. You threw strikes and went right after them. That's what we're looking for." Sounds great. That's what I can do.
Right.
So the next day we're in Wrigley. It's the 8th inning. Scott Ellerton's pitching. He's winning 3-1. We have one guy on, one out, and they call down the bullpen and says, if the next guy gets on, you're coming in. And I'm thinking to myself, you just told me last night that I'm only coming in blowouts or if we're winning by a lot. So, he said, well, if the next guy gets on, Sammy's coming up and you're facing Sammy. So
Great. I get to go see Sammy Sosa.
Yeah, so third day I'm in the big leagues. I'm facing Sammy Sosa with 2 guys on, and we're winning by 2 in Wrigley with 2 outs. And I remember walking out on the field, and it's 38,000 people. They're going nuts, because Sammy's hitting 60, I think, that year, close to 60. So Tony Asego was actually catching that game. Brad Osmus wasn't catching that game. He comes walking out and said, throwing all fastballs. I said, man, that's what I can do. Let's go. So end up throwing, I think, 4 fastballs, and I struck him out on a fastball high.
Wow.
It was amazing how the sound level changed in that place, too. It was like you couldn't hear anything to, just sucked it out of it. Pretty neat.
Yeah. Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show going into the Houston Astros Hall of Fame this summer, next week. In fact, joining us on the Modelo guest line and ESPN 105.9 The Zone. One more thing, other than obviously pitching at home, which I know is awesome. What was your was it Wrigley? Was it another park? What was your favorite park to compete and pitch in?
Wrigley was, it's amazing to me how they have 1:00 games and there's 38,000 people there every day. I was thinking no one has jobs in this town,
Right.
but just supported the team. Unbelievable. Even, some of the early years, they wouldn't even be making hardly playoffs, and it would be 38,000 people there.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, with Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor got there, they got a little better, and then started making the playoffs and stuff. But it's just a great town. Everywhere you go, they know you. They'll bring up stuff about you from high school because they've read about you or something like that. And they're a real good town, a real passionate team.
Yeah. What about St. Louis?
St. Louis is great fans
Because that's
the nicest
big-time
fans and
baseball.
nicest fans in the big leagues for
Okay.
sure. They'll get on you. Never take it to extreme. You go to New York and it's a little different story. They take it a little too extreme.
Philadelphia?
Philadelphia's a tough place.
Yeah.
But I got to play there.
They're crazy.
Say whether you're wearing the home jersey or not.
Exactly.
was
I
about
got
to-
to play there, and as long as you're doing well, Philadelphia's great. If you're not
Man.
doing too well, they'll get on you a little bit.
Yeah. Every now and then I'll flip on through an app, Philadelphia Sports Talk Radio. All they do is yell at each other. It's hilarious. Roy Oswalt on the Out of Bounds show. New restaurant, Taste in Starkville, 44 Prime coming. And that is exciting. And then, of course, also going in the Houston Astros Hall of Fame. I mean, that's
I like how you added that to the tag. Like,
Yeah, I mean-
and by the way,
and hold on. What didn't you go into the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame either 2 years ago or 3 years ago, Roy?
Yes.
Somewhere in there?
Yes, 2 years ago.
Okay.
That's
awesome, too.
Mississippi Hall of Fame. Yep.
They do a good job.
Yes, they do.
That induction ceremony is this weekend, too,
Okay.
for the new. In fact, Janet Marie Smith is going in, the Mississippi State architect, part of Camden Yard, Turner, and now the Dodgers, Mississippi State alum, which is very, very, very cool.
The coronavirus